Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sunday Night Ghost Stories on a Sunday as nature intended. Here we are in the library, he said grandly. We've got the fire on for effect. It's a sweaty old night here tonight. I would open the window, but at the moment I do open the window, Derp decides that he wants to jump out onto the roof. So it's going to be a warm old night here tonight. So what are we reading? Well, we are kind of jumping around a bit tonight with Bruce Barrymore Holt and his Ghost Stations books, because there are some nuggets in there, but unfortunately there's also a lot of really verbose opinionating that goes off tangent and terrible grammar. Oh, his habit of writing a sentence with and comma, and then it doesn't need the comma anyway. So yeah, we're going to be jumping around the Ghost Stations tonight. What are we drinking? Well, it's a 2-beer strategy tonight. The first one is it's a subscription beer by Interstellar Brewery, and it is PTC, which is, funny enough, that's the initials of my local town council. PTC, positive temperature coefficient, Czech dark lager. Just seeing if it says anything here. Nope, it doesn't say anything. The Interstellar Brewery is apparently from Mexico. Nope, no explanation whatsoever. In fact, we'll turn the blur off for a second so that we can show you the artwork. Very nice artwork, actually. So, but that's all it says. Interstellar Brewery. No. Nothing more than that. So that's what we're kicking off with tonight. And we have the Balmuir Scotch from Lidl, which I am really liking. It's a blended Scotch, but quite frankly, it's only 12 quid a bottle. So win a Christmas dinner. Right. So I'm just trying to see how many of these. Just seeing how many of these. Oh, actually, no. I think we've got. I think we've got a couple here. No, right. We are going to go back. If we've already read these ones, I do apologise. But right. The Ghosts of Full Sutton. In February 1965, Peter Giles and his mate set out in their Dodge Q lorry to deliver a greenhouse to a farm near Stamford Bridge, East Yorkshire. Peter worked as a truck driver for West Dock Limited of Hessel Road, Hull, who were a firm of horticultural and agricultural engineers that made large sectional commercial greenhouses. It was a dull, murky day as they set out, and by the time they arrived at their delivery point, it was raining very hard. By 1600 hours, it was dark, and by the time they had unloaded the greenhouse, all by hand and in the pouring rain, they were soaked to the skin. The farmer gave them tea, a hot bath, and dried their clothes. They left the farm at around 17:30 hours and headed in the direction given by the farmer. He had told Peter that a direct route to the A1070 Hull York Road was to follow the lane for Fangfoss and Pocklington by crossing the old wartime airfield of RAF Full Sutton. To Peter Giles, it was a straightforward route. Or was it? As they rolled into the old domestic site, their powerful headlights pierced the misty gloom. The Dodge was fitted with a one-piece panoramic windscreen, so vision was very good. The truck lights consisted of two 10-inch quartz halogen headlamps, boosted by four 6-inch Lucas flamethrower spotlights, and these were all full on. They were about halfway through the domestic site when suddenly into their headlight beams appeared two figures dressed in World War II flying gear. I slowed down as I neared the two figures, said Peter. They both had on flying helmets and had parachutes hanging behind. One carried a long green holdall, like a cricket bag, and as they crossed the road in front of us, I noticed that they cast no shadow. And stranger still, they were not wet, yet it was raining hard. I stopped and watched them disappear into a large Nissan hut on my right. Peter's mate had also seen the two ghostly flyers. Bloody Nora, did you see that? He exclaimed. Peter had seen them, in fact. He had never taken his eyes off them, and for reasons which he cannot explain, he felt the strong need to follow the ghostly figures into the Nissen hut. His mate did not go along. His mate did not go along with the decision and snapped, "Oh, for Christ's sake, let's get going." But not waiting to hear any more, Peter grabbed a large hand lamp and dismounted from his truck. I walked to the Nissan hut, which had double doors and a sort of vestibule entrance, said Peter. Once inside, I shone the lamp around, but it was empty. An old iron round stove lay on its side at one end. The floor was covered in debris, and some wall and ceiling panels hung loose. No sign of the two airmen. And Peter added, no wet footprints other than mine. Peter stood in the empty Nissen hut, which was like a time capsule and filled with all the atmosphere and spirits of those hectic wartime years. See, he's done it again. Peter stood in the empty Nissan hut, which, was like a time... Doesn't need the comma. He's still in the empty Nissan hut, which was like a time capsule... RAF Full Sutton was one of the last Second World War airfields to be opened in Yorkshire and became operational in May 1944 as a bomber station in Number 4 Group Bomber Command. Full Sutton housed only one operational unit, Number 77 Squadron, which was equipped with Handley Page Halifax bombers. Do apologise, folks. We've got the beer yawns. 9 minutes and 30 seconds, and we haven't even had a beer yet. Lost where I was. Full Sutton housed only one operational unit, Number 77 Squadron, which was equipped with Handley Page Halifax bombers. The last operational mission of the war came on the 25th of April 1945 when 19 Halifaxes bombed gun batteries on the island of Wangaroog. No, it's true, I tell you. After the war, the airfield remained open for a few years, and in the 50s, it housed 3 missiles as part of the Thor missile complex. Full Sutton finally closed in 1963, leaving only the ghost squadrons. Who's there? Called Peter. Again, he called as his confidence returned. He then noticed another double door and a short passage to a second Nissen hut. He found himself drawn towards the doorway and into the passage. Unable to stop himself, he entered the second room, which had at one end a low platform and on the wall a large map of Europe. See, it's done it again. Which, had at one end, should be another comma to carry the sentence on, a low platform on the wall. So it should read, he entered the second room, which had a... Anyway, I shone the lamp on the map. As I shone the lamp on the map, I became aware that I was being watched, said Peter, not by just 2 pairs of eyes, but by many, very, very many. The feeling was overwhelming, not baleful or ill-tempered, not even malevolent, just being watched, but by someone or something I could not see. Peter glanced uneasily around the empty room. Empty room? Or was it empty? He felt very disturbed. Probably heard me singing Gary Moore's Empty Rooms. But anyway, he felt very disturbed and uneasy as he sensed those spirits around him. And at that point, he made a hasty retreat back to his truck. His mate was very relieved to see him, and they made their way back in total silence. Nothing like this had ever happened to Peter Giles before, and the following day he told his foreman, Fred Curtis, but got a cool reception. I'm going off tangent again here, folks. It's almost like Bruce Barrymore Halpenny doesn't understand how commas work. Nothing like this had ever happened to Peter Giles before. On the following day, he told his foreman, Fred Curtis, Fred Curtis, but, got a cool reception, full stop. It should be, and the following day, he told his foreman, Fred Curtis, but got a cool reception. There shouldn't be a comma after but. Welcome to Sunday Night Grammar Stories. Anyway, Peter felt he just had to talk about the ghostly airmen. He had seen them, yet no one would believe him. When he told his wife what he had seen and done, she said, "I would never have dared to follow them. It is best to forget it, Pete." But Peter could not forget them. He had clearly seen them, followed them, and felt their presence. And on thinking about the ghostly event, many questions remained unanswered. He's actually used the commas correctly there. Why were their clothes not wet? It was pouring with rain and his got wet. Why no shadows in the truck headlamps? There were shadows from the bushes and trees, but as the two figures crossed in front of them, in the full glare of their truck lights, they cast no shadows. And why no footprints in the hut? All so very eerie. So eerie. I'm going to have a quick swig of the old beer. So this is the PTC Czech Dark Lager. So, okay. Quite chocolatey. When I interviewed Peter Giles and asked him what his thoughts were after seeing the two ghost airmen, he replied, "My thoughts after the event were confused. It was only after I entered the second building and the strange experience of the feeling of being watched by something I could not see did a fear begin to arise in me." I then asked Peter if he felt afraid on seeing the ghosts. "Without question, no. Curious," he replied. "After all, the place was closed, derelict, and deserted. So why should two blokes in Sidcot suits and flying boots still be around? The question of ghosts did not enter my head. Perhaps I did not believe in such things. In fact, I'm not sure I do. But I'm perfectly prepared to accept the fact that there are things on earth and in our lives that we do not fully understand." In 1967, just 2 years after the ghostly event, I was born then. In 1967, just 2 years after the ghostly event, Peter Giles was at a party and got into conversation with a man who was interested to hear about the two ghostly airmen. "He is a very successful businessman," said Peter. "He is a Freemason and never makes a move until he consults a medium," or an extra large. "What he said about the ghosts was most interesting. The last place home was the airfields, and the spirit soul would ever return there for security and peace." Over the next few years, the ghostly encounter slipped further from the mind of Peter Giles. Then, in July 1987, it happened again. Peter was delivering new paint tins for the metal box company to storage for the firm of Langston, Smith and Joint. The company had modernised a Second World War hangar at the old wartime airfield of Ratting Common in Cambridgeshire. As the truck was being unloaded, Peter walked around the old airfield. As he entered the hangar, he suddenly became aware of how cold it was. and that eerie feeling of not being alone started to creep over him, just as it did that February night in 1965. But this time, fear took hold, and Peter quickly returned to his truck. On seeing his frightened look, the site manager asked him if he was all right. Peter then told him about his feelings inside the hangar. The site manager said he had never felt it, but added that he would not hang about after dark or go there onto the airfield unless, or go up there onto the airfield unless he had to. Ratting Common housed number 1651 conversion unit during the latter part of the war. There were many accidents with the short Sterling bomber, and many crashed on takeoff. The airfield also housed number 195 Squadron from November 1944 to August 1945, and their four-engined Avro Lancaster bombers flew a total of 1,384 sorties. They had many losses during their short and hectic life at Ratting Common, the worst being against Witten in the Ruhr. It was a daylight raid to help prepare for Montgomery's Trans-Rhine offensive, and number 195 Squadron dispatched 18 Lancaster bombers. But on the way to target, they were attacked by enemy fighters, and 3 Lancasters were shot down in flames. Another crashed in Belgium. Badly mauled, the formation continued to target, but on their return to England, number 195 crews found that their airfield was fog-bound. So 11 tired crews had to be diverted. The hangar that Peter Giles had wandered into was one that had been used for repairing battle-damaged aircraft. Blood-splattered wrecks that only just managed to make it back. Now they had gone. Only the eerie silence remains as one steps back in time. Had Peter Giles stepped back in time that February night in 1965? Is there such a thing as a time zone? He certainly saw 2 ghost airmen, and the feeling to follow and investigate was so strong, he did just so. Why? That he cannot explain. I think that deserves a... I think that definitely deserves another quick swig of the old PTC. Oh, I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I am absolutely pooped today. I was up at stupid this morning, did a little bit of work on friend Laura's allotment in the baking heat, and then I did the show at the Helicopter Museum, and then our other webcast this evening. This one, I'm frankly looking forward to slipping downstairs, putting something on the telly, and having some supper, and then falling asleep. So. Anyway, oh, what do you know? Dead Soldier and Run VT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, Dead Soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
Indeed. In the magnificent Rush beer glass, courtesy of viewers Kirsten and Steve in the United States, Slange me bar. Oh, lovely. And we'll have some of this, I've forgotten what it's called again, Balmure. He's had one couple of mouthfuls of beer and he can't remember what he's drinking, so Slange. Oh, that'll lower the tone of the show. Right. The next chapter, Guardian Angel. Many people claim to have a guardian angel, as told in my book, Ghost Stations. The story, The Man Who Never Was, who saved Sergeant Petrie, and in my story, saved by the ghost of his brother, Bill Caulfield is in no doubt that it was the spirit of his brother Jimmy who saved their little Anson aircraft from certain disaster. And in the guardian spirit, it certainly was one that looked after those who flew in Bolton Paul Defiant N3312 throughout those dark days of the war. And even Dynasty star Sexy Sable, come on, Bruce, really? Stephanie Beacham claims she has a guardian angel watching over her, a sister Cyril who also guides her acting career. She is the ghost of a wonderful nun, says Stephanie. She taught at the convent school I attended as a schoolgirl in England. Audrey Elcombe's guardian angel came out of friendship, and it all started after she began researching into West Indian aircrew during the Second World War. For over a year, she had delved deeply into the squadron records and in the public record office at Kew. During her research, one particular fighter pilot had become more prominent than all the others. He was pilot officer. See again. During her research, one particular fighter pilot had become more prominent than all the others, comma. He was, comma, pilot officer Colin Olwyn Joseph from Trinidad. Doesn't need the extra comma there, Bruce. Anyway, for some unknown reason, she felt compelled to find out more about him. At this stage, she was unaware of what had happened to him. Had he survived the war and gone back to Trinidad? Audrey had to find out. Then came the sad news. The Imperial War Museum, she learned that he had joined from Trinidad Air Training Scheme, where he learned to fly, and in 1941 came to England with, turns page, with 4 other of his countrymen to volunteer for the Royal Air Force. He was killed in 1944. Audrey felt sad, yet at the same time felt more determined to find out how he was killed and where he was buried. For some time, I had a strong feeling that he was the driving force behind my project, and that much of the help and ideas came from him, though I was unable to explain why, she said. This feeling was increased by a remark from a man who had served in the Royal Air Force and was rather psychic. I knew he was rather psychic. He said the idea for the research possibly came from one of those who had lost their lives. That was strange, for out of the group that came with Pilot Officer Joseph, only one survived. It was an interesting conversation for Audrey, and she agreed with what he had said. She then showed him some photographs of wartime fighter pilots, amongst them one of Pilot Officer Joseph. Glancing through the photographs, he picked out the one of Joseph. That's the one. Any help that comes will be from him, he said. To Audrey, it seemed uncanny. Here was a man she did not know, no relation, killed in the war over 37 years ago, yet now he ruled her destiny. What he told me confirmed my belief, said Audrey. Then the idea, which had been in the back of my mind to visit the pilot's grave in the Belgian Ardennes, suddenly became a necessity. The urge for Audrey Elcombe to visit the grave became her first priority. She now had to hand all the information about Pilot Officer Joseph. At the time he was killed, he was flying Spitfires with number 125 wing in number 83 group of the 2nd Tactical Air Force, and were operating from an American airfield, Y-32 Ophoven. They were flying fighter projection patrols, or from time to time the Luftwaffe made sporadic attempts to join in the ground battle. On the 31st of December 1944, Pilot Officer Joseph was on the last sortie of the day, making a sweep of the St. Vith area. Suddenly he came under heavy and accurate anti-aircraft fire. His Spitfire was hit and he crashed just north of Malmedy. It is ironic that he was brought down and killed by Allied guns. At least they were friendly guns. The squadron diarist wrote, Pilot Officer Joseph was missing on the last sortie of the day of the old year, time between 1530 and 1600 hours. He did not mention that he had been tragically shot down by Allied guns. that was conveniently omitted when he filled in the squadron diary. Joseph was aged 28 when killed. His body was recovered and buried by the American Army. Swig of the old beer. Good Lord. Slange. Oh, cheers me beers. Oh, lovely. With the urge to visit his grave now almost an obsession, Audrey made plans to do just that by combining it with a few days' holiday in Belgium. At long last, the great day came, and in June 1982, Audrey Elcom set out for Bruges in Belgium. Her plans were to rest up and do a little sightseeing in Bruges, then go down to the British War Cemetery in Hotten either midweek or just before she returned home. But all her planning was in vain. I arrived in Bruges on the Saturday evening, and while walking round the next day, felt a compelling urgency to go to Hotten first, said Audrey. She spelled Audrey Aurdey, so that's Aldi, or Audrey Audrey. Come on, Bruce, proofread it. I knew I must not wait until later. On, but go as soon as possible. And she added, I had no doubts at all that he knew I was going to his resting place. For Audrey Elcom, it was not an easy visit to make, for it meant a journey of 4 hours with a change of trains and an overnight stop in Hotten. All this in a strange and foreign country, unable to speak the language. Yet she did not give it a second thought. Arrangements were made on Monday, and the following morning she set off into the unknown, not knowing what may be ahead. As she got nearer to the Ardennes, the more emotional became her feelings. She was almost unable to contain them. It was all so very strange, but the fear gave way to relief as she stepped off the train. I was laden with my suitcase and flowers, but help and kindness were at hand, she said. Outside the station, I asked an older couple for directions. It turned out they were Dutch and spoke English. At first, the Dutch lady pointed out the bus that would take me into the village. I set off. Then they called after me to say that they would take me in their car to my hotel. Strangely, at that moment, I had a mental image of Joseph's photograph, much enlarged like a flash across my mind, and I knew he was helping me. At the hotel, the proprietors spoke good English and greeted Audrey with great kindness. They even took her in the car to the British War Cemetery and, at Audrey's request, left her to be alone with her thoughts. She had a plan of the cemetery and knew where to find the grave of Pilot Officer Joseph. I could scarcely believe I was actually there, she said, yet the feeling of sadness was so great. I openly wept as if he had been related. After placing flowers on his grave, Audrey took some photographs. She stayed for some time before walking slowly back to the hotel. The British War Cemetery at Hotten contains some 300 war graves. All are Royal Air Force and all are well kept. The little cemetery lies beside a secondary road high up on a hill overlooking the wooded Ardennes region. The village itself, now mostly rebuilt, had been right in the middle of very bitter fighting and had been almost completely destroyed in the Ardennes offensive. The hotel at which Audrey Elcom stayed was a small family-run hotel run on the style of a motel with rooms that looked out across the countryside, very peaceful. Open fields, trees, and a little stream. Just the atmosphere I needed, said Audrey, as I wanted to sit quietly with my thoughts. That evening, when she went into the dining room, a vase in which there were 5 beautiful roses had been placed on her table. a very thoughtful and kind gesture by the proprietor's mother. The next morning, again bathed in glorious sunshine, Audrey walked up to the cemetery for a brief visit, then back into the village with a call to the church. At the church, I lit a candle for Pilot Officer Joseph, as I felt he would have liked that, said Audrey. The following day, Madame H. drove Audrey to the railway station for her journey back to Bruges. I felt most reluctant to go, she said, and as the train left the Ardennes, felt very sad to be going and was very near to tears. It is interesting to note that Audrey Elcombe had a very marked feeling when at the graveside of her guardian angel. As she herself said, I had a distinct feeling or impression that he was standing near to me, to my right, in his flying gear minus helmet. That was the distinct sense I strongly felt and found it quite comforting. And it was not just at the graveside did she feel and know that her guardian angel was there and looking after her. Back in Bruges, Audrey sat relaxing on a bench in the square where again she felt and knew her guardian angel was with her. She was deep in thought about the past 2 days. I again had the strong impression that he was sitting beside me for a few minutes, she said. Has Audrey Elcombe a guardian angel? She is in no doubt that she has, and on looking back at her visit, said, so much could have happened to me, for I only spoke a few words of French and was travelling alone in a completely strange country. Yet I never put a foot wrong the whole time. Things just seemed to come right for me. Even the weather, which had been stormy, suddenly cleared to become hot and sunny. I cannot think this is all coincidence for every single minute to go so well in the 2 days. I cannot think this is all coincidence for every single minute to go so well in the 2 days without a single problem. I believe I was being looked after by Pilot Officer Joseph to ensure my visit was perfect. It is true to say I felt a sense of protection wherever I went, and I knew he was with me. But why Joseph? Research uncovered that he was an addition outside the family and kept quiet about it. But why Joseph? Research uncovered that he was an addition outside the family and kept quiet about. Though the family knew about him at the time, they did not know him personally. On finding us out, Audrey said, to me, this explained a lot, especially the necessary visit to the grave. Apart from his mother and natural father, there was no one to care about his loss or remember him. And I feel certain that this was why he wanted someone to visit his resting place, so that he should not be entirely forgotten. For Audrey Elcombe, the whole visit was charged with emotion. The peace, the beauty of the Ardennes, the kindness of the Belgian people, and the glorious weather all combined to make it a wonderful spiritual experience she will never forget, thanks to her guardian angel. That definitely deserves a thumbs up. I'll see if I can find the picture rather than show you the picture here. Pilot Officer, I've forgotten his bloody name now. Pilot Officer Colin Joseph. Oh, yeah, here we go. Well, this spares me having to hold up a book to the oops, let's try it again. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. So pilot officer Colin Joseph, share screen. There he is. Absolutely incroyable, that. What a fabulous, oh, there we go. There we go. Pilot officer Colin Joseph. What a fabulous picture. Appears to be in a Spitfire Mark. I'm going to guess that's probably a Mark 9. Yeah, that's the lad. That's the one we've been talking about. Goodness me, we are through the half-hour mark. So let's toast pilot officer Colin Joseph. Slange mi va. Oh, cheers me beers. Oh, lovely. Half time. Half time. Goodness me. We've got some Japanese style. No, we haven't opened that up yet. Japanese style rice snacks. We haven't opened them, so yeah. So I stayed up last night to watch the England game, and got to the last 2 minutes, and I was so stressed out by the game that I thought I'll go to bed, I'll try and get to sleep, and then I'll check the score when I wake up. So I went upstairs, started to kind of settle down, and then I thought, no, I've got to check the score. Yeah, we won. Good news. So then woke up at 1:30 stupid this morning because his derpy lurpiness woke me up to be fed. Of course he did. So saw to him. Then I had to pop into Weston-super-Mare for the show today. So I stopped off at friend Laura's allotment and did a little bit of tidying up there, a little bit of weeding, which was good. Oh, and this morning I also spent half an hour watering everything on the patio. So do apologise. I'm like a pig with these snacks. I really am. But so this week, I should be up the crack of dawn tomorrow to finish off another artwork project. Then I'm meeting my friend Kim down the lake grounds. We're going for a walk, which should be good fun. Wednesday, I think it's 2 Reg walk down on the West Somerset Railway, and then the England game on the Wednesday evening. Thursday, I'm down in that there Glastonbury for the Cars at Jadlam show, which I'm looking forward to. So that's my week pretty much planned out. But no complaints from me here, folks, because quite frankly, I am bloody lucky to still be here to do all this stuff. Oh, and also Friday, BBC Proms starts. So what I'm thinking is, what we might do next week is we might have Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra on a Tuesday. And then we might also have Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra on a Thursday. So I can take Friday night off and listen to the start of the BBC Proms season. So that's the plan. Oh my goodness me, these wasabi. They're not, they're Japanese style rice snacks. Oh my goodness me, they're so Moorish. And there is the grave of Pilot Officer Colin A. Joseph. What a guy. I think we'll have some more Japanese style. Sorry, folks, I'm dirt hungry. I was hoping to have a shopping trip with friend Faye on Thursday, but not if I'm going down to Glastonbury. So, cheers, me beard. The jinxed jets. Just about all pilots and aircrew have some little superstition, as the chapter Call It Superstition in Ghost Stations 2 made clear. And not only superstition, but also jinx, like the one which branded the 19-year-old Orion Air Boeing 747 the Flying Pig. The aging Jinx jumbo jet, registration N-751PA, caused distress to thousands of holidaymakers in 1989. As the holiday season got underway, the Jinx did also. On the 27th of June, a faulty temperature gauge laid up the jumbo jet for 27 hours. 2 days later, it was forced to land at Edmonton in Canada, when smoke began billowing from an engine because of a faulty oil seal. The passengers were returning home from Honolulu, and 50, who refused to fly again in the Jinx Jumbo, were flown home by Air Canada. On the 5th of July, the Jinx struck again, 3 hours late leaving Manchester for Honolulu. The following day, a 6-hour delay to Los Angeles caused by an electrical fault. That was put right, and the jumbo jet took to the skies. At last, all was now well. Or was it? Has the jumbo jet shed its jinx? Not really. On Monday, the 17th of July, 1989, the Boeing 747 was taxiing for takeoff at Los Angeles Airport to return to Manchester when the captain noticed a warning light on the control panel for number 3 engine. The jumbo jet returned to the terminal gate where engineers discovered an oil leak and, they said, could not repair the fault. The captain then announced, "I am not prepared to take off in this aircraft. I don't consider it safe." That was Ryanair. They just go, "No, get in the plane." The jumbo jet certainly appeared to be jinxed, and angry passengers felt justified in calling it the Flying Pig. But was that the right to do so? Despite its many faults, the aging jumbo jet had delivered all its passengers safely back to Mother Earth. No one had been killed or injured, unlike the Jinx, which grounded the world-famous Red Arrows based at Royal Air Force Scampton in Lincolnshire. Their Jinx first struck at the end of 1980s, so it should be a full stop there. Their Jinx first struck at the end of 1987 when two of their Hawk aircraft plunged to the ground after a wingtip collision over the village of Welton near Lincoln. In January 1988, the jinx struck again. One of the Red Arrow's Hawks failed to pull out of a roll. The pilot, Flight Lieutenant Neil McLachlan, died in the crash. It was then decided to ban the Red Arrows from any future public displays. In May 1988, the ban was lifted. The Flying Aces could once again reach for the skies. But the following month, their jinx struck again. Squadron leader Peter Collins' Hawk jet developed engine trouble as it roared down the runway. But instead of taking off, belly flopped onto the runway and burst into flames seconds after the pilot had ejected. Another jinxed aircraft was a supersonic jet fighter. This was maybe something deeper than a jinx. The aircraft in question was English Electric Lightning XR-768. It was delivered to the Royal Air Force for squadron service on the 1st of August 1966 and served with number 74 Squadron, Tiger Squadron. It then went to the maintenance unit where it was almost completely rebuilt. During this period, the jinx struck, and if anything could go wrong, it did. Sand. Oh, cheers. We are just going to top up the beer with the magnificent Godzilla bottle opener, which was an added freebie to the beautiful t-shirt that I ordered about a week and a bit ago. Oops, overfilled that a bit. Oh, lovely. After many hours of toil and sweat, Lightning XR-768 was at last ready to be air tested, and with great relief, the maintenance crew left it in the hangar overnight. Oh, the beer burps at 49 minutes and 41 seconds. I do apologize. The following morning, after many hours of toil and sweat, Lightning XR-768 was at last ready to be air tested, and with great relief, the maintenance crew left it in the hangar overnight. The following morning, it was found with one of its main wheel tires flat and a large pool of fuel beneath the fuselage. On seeing the Lightning, one technician said, "It looks as though it's bloody wet itself." The air test was cancelled and the maintenance crew set to work to rectify the faults. At last, it was ready again to be air tested and locked in the hangar overnight. But again, the jinx struck. For on opening the hangar doors, they found the Lightning fighter with its other main wheel tire flat and another large pool of fuel beneath the fuselage. And on seeing it, the technician cried out, bloody hell, it's done it again. It's wet itself again." Back again to the maintenance crew, and once again it was repaired and locked in the hangar ready for its test flight. In the still of the night, the jinx struck again, for on opening the hangar doors the following morning, they found the Lightning in a very sad state. Both main wheels flat and an even larger pool of fuel beneath the fuselage. "It's done it again. The bloody beast has done it again," cried one of the fitters. It was unbelievable. Was there a reason for it? Was the lightning trying to warn them? For the next few weeks, there was a series of misfortunes. The lightning persisted in wetting itself in spite of all the efforts of the maintenance unit. Those working on the lightning could not understand it. As one fitter said, it just seems it doesn't want to fly again. I've never known anything like it. One minute you have it ready, then overnight it's sick again. It's as if the bloody beast has a mind of its own. People were now reluctant to work on the Lightning fighter, and even the unit test pilot, a man of considerable experience, was somewhat reluctant to touch it, let alone air test the beast. But eventually, the great day came. After more tire failures and wetting, it stood at the end of the runway, ready to take off. But the Jinx took off also, and during the air test, there were several instrument malfunctions. Now all was sorted out, or was it? As the Lightning fighter came into land, the power controls failed and it had to be recovered in manual. Surely nothing else could go wrong. It could, and it did. The Jinx Lightning had got down in one piece and was just pulling up to the end of the runway when suddenly a tyre burst, left the paved surface, fractured the leg, and sustained damage to the underside. It ground to a halt in a sick and sorry state. By this time, the Lightning fighter had become a menace, and it was the wish of everyone on the station to get rid of the jinxed aircraft as quickly as possible. Eventually, the unwanted beast was proclaimed fit and ferried to Royal Air Force Binbrook in Lincolnshire, where it was taken on the strength of Number 5 Squadron. Unbeknown to the pilots of Number 5 Squadron, the beast brought the Jinx with it. Or was it, unbeknown to the pilots of Number 5 Squadron, the beast brought the Jinx with it. Or was it, as one technician said, someone has put a curse on it. They did not have long to wait, for on its very first operational scramble on the 29th of October 1974, it experienced a double flameout and crashed in the North Sea off Mablethorpe. The pilot, Flight Lieutenant Tex Jones, ejected safely and was recovered by an air sea rescue helicopter. Had the old Lightning XR768 been trying to tell them something? Or was it just a jinxed aircraft? Myself, I think the gallant old lady who had done 2,129 flying hours tried to warn them. They did not heed her warnings, and down she came after making sure the pilot was out safely. I think we'll have a thunderclap for that. "55 minutes. I think we'll have some more wasabi Japanese style rice snacks, I think. Part deux of tonight's beer odyssey is the chocolate stout from Aldi. Smooth and indulgent, 5% volume of alcohol, brewed in the UK in partnership with Hall and Woodhouse, the well-known 1980s pop duo. A rich, indulgent stout featuring luxurious chocolate flavours balanced by notes of roasted malt. Very nice stuff. the witch's curse. During the Second World War, the call of nature proved lucky for some bomber crews. One Avro Lancaster crew based at Royal Air Force Kelston in Lincolnshire always relieved themselves on the front starboard wheel before each operation. It had started out as a joke but continued after their safe return. Then they got a new captain who, on hearing what they were going to do, told them to stop. They boarded the Avro Lancaster bomber in silence, never to be seen again, for their bomber failed to return. In Ghost Stations, I told the story of Bobby's Vigil, the half-breed retriever Shetland sheepdog that was adopted by a Lancaster bomber crew of number 101 Squadron. After the briefing, Bobby would go out with his crew to their aircraft on dispersal and, before they entered, he would cock up his leg and urinate on the trailing wheel. That was lucky, said the pilot. But one night, Bobby did not make it to the aircraft and they took off without being blessed by Bobby. Sadly, they crashed and were all killed. Bobby pined away and died. His ghostly form now haunts the old airfield at Ludford Manor. His ghostly form now haunts the old airfield at Ludford Manor. For those bomber crews, it had been lucky to urinate on their aircraft. Their luck only changed when their aircraft was not urinated on. But for one little boy in 13th century Brussels in Belgium, it was certainly bad luck to answer the call of nature. Was that where it all started? Brussels was established in the 6th century and was little more than a fortified castle on an island in the River Seine. During the 12th, 13th, and 14th centuries, there were violent uprisings, and in the 14th century, the Count of Flanders' troops occupied Brussels. They immediately built huge fortified walls around Brussels, and these survived until 1830. Almost at the hour mark, so Sloan. In the magnificent United Federation Appliance Shot Glass, again courtesy of viewers Kirsten and Steve in the United States. Slange me worry, buddy. We're almost up to the hour mark. Brussels is much more than the headquarters of the European Common Market. It is also the home of the Manneken Pis, the bronze statue of a 5-year-old boy urinating into a basin, and to the people of Brussels, their oldest citizen. The Manneken Pis fountain was constructed in 1619 and is a curiosity of the lower town. It is said that the Manneken Pis symbolizes resistance to excessive enthusiasm and simple civil disobedience. There has been a statue on the site since 1388, and during that period was one of 30 fountains which provided the residents of Brussels with their only piped water. In September 1988, the little boy answering the call of nature celebrated his 600th birthday. Why has the little boy peeing stood the test of time? Is it superstition? One legend has it that in the 13th century, a little boy saved Brussels by peeing on the lighted fuse of an incendiary bomb. But another legend says a naked street urchin was caught peeing on the door of a witch's house. The witch condemned the little boy to continue forever in that stance, and he has done just that. Usually the mannequin is naked, just as he was when he weed the deed, but you may also see him in one of 448 costumes that have been bestowed on him by government, service clubs, organizations, and folklorists from all over the world. In 1747, a group of Louis XV soldiers kidnapped the mannequin Piss, but when the French king found out, he was furious. Was it fear that made him react so violently? Many strange superstitions had by this period grown up around the little man. In a jocular but natural pose, King Louis XV immediately condemned the kidnapping and severely punished the soldiers involved. Was the French king fearful of the supernatural reprisal from the mannequin Piss? Louis XV became king at the age of 5, the age of a little boy destined to answer the call of nature forever on a Brussels street corner. Was this in the king's mind? Something certainly was, for the French king quickly tried to make amends and presented the mannequin Piss as a splendid suit of clothes in brocade and the cross from around his neck. Read that again. Was this in the king's mind? Something certainly was, for the king quickly tried to make amends and presented the mannequin Piss with a splendid suit of clothes in brocade and the cross from around his own neck. But why? Louis XIV of France had continually had his armies bombarding Brussels during the second half of the 17th century, and hundreds of buildings were destroyed by fire. So why had Louis XV such a change of attitude? Had the king been prompted by Jean Antoinette Poisson, Marquis de Pompadour, who had great political influence and had been instilled as his official mistress only 2 years earlier in September 1745? Whatever the reason, the people of Brussels were overjoyed and have idolized the mannequin Piss ever since. The statue has been kidnapped many times, but each time it has been returned. The witch's curse cannot be broken. In the 18th century, some English soldiers stole the little statue, but they quickly returned it. And in 1817, Antoine Licus was sentenced to life imprisonment for stealing the mannequin Piss. The last kidnapping was in 1978 when students took the little boy as a prank. They quickly returned him and apologized. So, the witch's curse holds good to this day. The little boy is there for all the world to see, doing what comes naturally and protected by an unseen force. Just having a look to see if there's a nice short one that we can finish on tonight. I don't think there is. These go on for ages. No, we'll do this one. The Ghosts of Royal Air Force Methanol. Oh, goodness me. I am absolutely shocked tonight, folks. Be amazing if I actually stay awake to have my supper. We're up to 20, nearly 10:30. Goodness me. Slangs me well. Oh, lovely. The Hauntings at Royal Air Force Methwold. Royal Air Force Methwold, sited just north of Brandon in Suffolk, became operational at the outset of the Second World War as a satellite to Royal Air Force Feltwell, and, like all bomber airfields, the many sites were widely dispersed. The beer bets again, do apologise. Most of the communal sites were hidden in dense woodland that surrounded the airfield. Its remoteness and inaccessibility gave the airfield a sort of unreal air, a bit like Brigadoon. But unlike Brigadoon, it was haunted. After Lincolnshire, it is the most haunted area in England. Roman ruins are everywhere. Also, a witch's coven was located at Brandon, and to this day, a sign with a witch on a broomstick welcomes people to the town. Yeah, some Japanese style rice snacks, quite frankly. So, during the winter of 1939 to 1940, a ghost hound was sighted many times in the trees which surrounded the airfield. It was a huge, supernatural beast, said one airman who had witnessed the ghost hound. For many years, a ghost hound was reported in the Norfolk, Suffolk area, and it was reputed. It gave Conan Doyle the inspiration for The Hound of the Baskervilles. Had he also witnessed the ghost hound? Could the ghost hound and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle have a much deeper and more sinister connection? It is strange that he should have based his story on the ghost hound, for he dedicated himself to the cause of spiritualism during his latter years. Conan Doyle died in July 1930 at Crowborough, Sussex. As the mist swirled in over the airfield, the ghost hound was reputed to have been seen many times, loping along the wooded rides around the airfield. There were many other supernatural encounters as leading aircraftsman Alex Red Gibson and his Oppo leading aircraftsman Jock Mitchell experienced. They were part of the station's radar section, and their billet was a Nissan hut situated about half a mile across a main road and deep into the woods adjacent to the airfield. The woods made a perfect natural cover for their billets. Their nearest neighbours, the wireless telegraphy section, enjoyed similar domestic amenities some 150 yards away, though completely invisible from each other by reason of the trees and undergrowth. We haven't finished. I'm just having some more snacks. So round. During the winter of 1945, the radar section held a seasonal party in the radar section building to celebrate the repatriation of some of their Canadian colleagues. The night was bitterly cold and frosty, with occasional wisps of freezing mist. Back at the Nissan hut, the other 4 or 5 members of the section who had decided to make a night of it around the stove were snug and warm. With this in mind, Alex and Jock elected to face the chilly bike ride to their nice warm billets, spurred on by the thoughts of a comfortable bed. It was late by the time they arrived at their hut, their companions already fast asleep, and it was only a matter of minutes before they too were in bed. Those who have known the delights of basic living in a Nissen hut will well remember that the focal point of the rather elemental existence was the round iron stove, which in winter was never allowed to go out. The skilled secret was to charge it from the bottom to top with coke before retiring to bed, closing all the vents and flaps, then leaving it to slumber like the occupants until the first morning riser opened it up and brought it back to life. We will get on with the ghost stories in a minute. I'm just trying to find where I was. So, Jock and I checked the stove as a matter of course before crawling into bed, finding that our oppos had done their domestic duty, said Alex. Satisfied, we retired, and an undefined time later, I lay relaxed in that suspended state between waking and sleeping, mulling over events of the pleasant evening. The darkness, great band, the darkness of the hut was complete when suddenly the door was flung open and a shadowy figure stumped down the length of the room, picked up the radar aerial used irreverently as a poker, and began vigorously to prod and rake at the stove's innards. It obliged by flaring into life, and red shadows began to dance on the hut's ceilings and walls. I recall very clearly feeling annoyed that the late comer had not only chosen to upset our careful domestic arrangements, but had left the hut door wide open so that I could clearly see the impressive silver frost-weighted bracken fronds petrified in the moonlight, and the glittering boles of the young trees a few yards beyond. Inexplicably, his operation on our stove completed, the mystery caller didn't continue his noisy progress to his bed, but seemed to fade into the shadows. I noticed then that the hut door was now closed, though there had been no sound from its noisy latch. I lay for a few minutes with a growing itch of unease and with a disinclination to leave the protective warmth of the bed to investigate. That's a shocking reading. We'll have another rap at that. So let's move on. I lay for a few minutes with a growing itch of unease and with a disinclination to leave the protective warmth of the bed to investigate. Gradually, I became aware of my friend Jock sitting up in his bed opposite, trying to see through the hut's gloom. What was this all about? I whispered at him, almost reluctant to break the silence. I suppose it's those W.T. Wallers up to their tricks again, came his hissed reply, easily satisfied with any offered explanation which had a minimal semblance or reason. I wrestled the problem no further and went to sleep. Jock, I'm getting the character. Jock was the self-appointed billet crook and earned our everlasting gratitude by gradually rising early and putting a £7 jam tin of water on the stove ready for our first cuppa and subsequent shaving operations. I was woken by his shaking my shoulder and pointing at the stove. I took the point after the intruder's attentions. It should have burnt itself out, requiring the complicated process of rekindling. On the contrary, the stove was clearly, as our fellow residents had considerably left it before, completely closed down, brimful of unburnt coke, all ready to be reactivated. There was absolutely nothing. There was absolutely no sign of any interference, no ashes in the hearth, but no burnt fuel, nothing. So, had it all been a bad dream? Jock somewhat abstractively went through the motions of opening up the store, then remembered something and walked over to the door, said Alex. He jerked at the latch. The door would not open. It was locked in his pocket. That's it for tonight, folks. Oh my goodness me. I can barely stay awake here. I think, like most people, I was up until stupid this morning to watch England playing. I've forgotten who are playing now. Goodness me. This is typical of me, this is. Scores and fixtures. Saturday, Norway. We beat Norway 2-1. Of course we did. It was Haaland. So yeah, 2-1 Norway. Came from behind, won the game. Absolutely brilliant. So, beer burps again. Do apologise. So, that's it for tonight. Just want to say thank you for watching. Why not? What else are you going to do on a Sunday night than watch a confused man from Dudley with holes in his head, drink ghost stories, and read alcohol? Come on, you can do better. I can't. I am trapped in this tragic existence. So, until the next time, as ever, thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, and please don't have nightmares. Good night.